Darius Voss wiped grime from his forehead as he maneuvered his maintenance crawler along the hull of the abandoned freighter. The vessel floated motionless against the backdrop of Epsilon Station's bustling spaceport, its running lights dark, its distress beacon the only sign of life. "Anything yet?" The voice in his earpiece belonged to Nima Zari, the station's alien cultural liaison. Her tone was professional but carried an undercurrent of concern that Darius found oddly comforting. "Nothing obvious," he replied, scanning the freighter's exterior with practiced eyes. "Hull integrity seems intact. No signs of weapons damage. It's like the crew just vanished." The Nightfall had appeared at the edge of Epsilon's sensor range 3 days ago, drifting on minimal power. When hails went unanswered, station protocol demanded investigation. As an independent pilot contracted for salvage operations, Darius had drawn the assignment. Nima had volunteered to join the boarding party, unusual for a cultural liaison, but her species' heightened senses often proved valuable. "Airlock ahead," Darius announced, guiding the crawler toward a standard-issue entry port. "Preparing to breach." The salvage crawler latched onto the airlock with mechanical precision. Darius checked his environment suit one final time before cycling through. Inside, he activated his helmet lights, illuminating a deserted corridor. "Atmosphere reads normal," he said, checking his instruments. "Gravity functional. Odd for an abandoned ship to maintain life support." "I'm coming across," Nima replied. Moments later, she appeared beside him, her tall, slender form encased in an environment suit modified for her physiology. As of Aziran, Nima's skin had a subtle lavender hue that contrasted with her silver-white hair, currently concealed beneath her helmet. Her eyes, large, with irises so dark they appeared black, scanned the corridor with characteristic Aziran attentiveness. "Something's wrong," she said immediately. "I can sense residual emotional imprints. Fear. Panic." Darius had worked with enough non-humans to know better than to question Aziran empathic abilities. "Let's check the bridge first, then engineering." They moved through the ship cautiously, finding neither bodies nor signs of struggle. The bridge was eerily intact, yet abandoned. Nima paused at the captain's console, her gloved fingers hovering over the controls. "The logs have been wiped," she said after attempting to access the system. Deliberately. Darius frowned behind his visor. "Who abandons a perfectly good freighter and erases all record of why?" "Someone with something to hide," Nima replied. In engineering, they found similar emptiness, functional systems, no crew. The ship's reactor hummed quietly, operating at minimal capacity. "This doesn't make sense," Darius muttered. "Let's check the cargo hold." The cargo bay doors slid open to reveal stacks of containers, each bearing appropriate shipping codes. Darius began scanning them methodically while Nima moved between the rows, her head tilted slightly, a Aziran posture indicating deep concentration. "Wait," she said suddenly, stopping before a container near the back. "There's something alive in there." Darius joined her, his scanner confirming her suspicion. "Life signs. 3 of them, small. Could be escaped cargo animals." "No," Nima's voice had changed, softer now. "These are sentient signatures. Young ones." Darius examined the container's locking mechanism. "Standard security protocol. I can override it." His fingers worked quickly across the keypad. The seal broke with a hiss of released pressure. As the door swung open, Darius's breath caught in his throat. Inside, huddled together on thin blankets, were 3 small humanoid children. 2 had pale orange skin with delicate ridges along their foreheads and spindly limbs. The third, slightly smaller, possessed iridescent blue scales covering her body, with webbed fingers that trembled visibly. "Stars above," Darius whispered. Nima immediately removed her helmet, her empathic abilities no longer hindered by the barrier. She knelt before the container, her movements slow and gentle. "It's all right," she said, her melodic voice pitched to soothe. "We won't hurt you." The children shrank back, their eyes, oversized in their small faces, wide with terror. The blue-scaled child whimpered, a sound that pierced Darius's heart. "They're Selani," Nima explained, indicating the orange-skinned pair. "And a Marish," she added, looking at the blue-scaled child. "All from the outer colonies. What are they doing here?" Darius removed his own helmet, crouching beside Nima. "Trafficking," he said grimly. "Has to be. Those mining colonies near Helios 7 have been unstable for months. Perfect hunting ground for people looking to exploit orphans." The smallest child, the Marish girl, suddenly spoke, her voice barely audible. "Help. Safe now." Nima reached out slowly, palm up in a universal gesture of peace. "Yes, little one. Safe now. I promise." To Darius's surprise, the child placed her tiny webbed hand in Nima's. Something shifted in his chest at the sight, Nima's delicate lavender fingers curling protectively around the child's blue ones. "My name is Nima," she said softly. "This is Darius. What's your name?" "Shima," the Marish girl whispered. Then, pointing to the Selani children, Prel and Tivo. "Brothers. We need to get them to medical," Darius said, already calculating the fastest route back to Epsilon Station. "Then report this to station security." Nima's expression darkened. "Wait." She gently turned Shima's head, revealing a small metallic disc embedded at the base of her skull. "Tracking implants. All three have them." Darius cursed under his breath. Professional operation, then. These kids weren't just opportunistic cargo. Someone's expecting delivery. "Someone on Epsilon?" Nima asked, the implication hanging heavy between them. Darius nodded slowly. "Maybe we should keep this quiet until we know who's involved." "My quarters," Nima said decisively. "I have medical training. We can take them there instead of the public medical bay." "What about station security?" Darius asked. "Not until we know who to trust," Nima replied, her dark eyes meeting his. Something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of shared purpose that surprised Darius with its intensity. He nodded. "All right. My crawler can get us back discreetly." Getting the children to trust them enough to leave the container took patience. Nima spoke in soft tones, her natural empathic abilities clearly soothing their fear. Darius watched her work, struck by the contrast between her professional demeanor during their earlier exploration and this gentle, nurturing presence. Eventually, Shima allowed Nima to lift her. The Selani brothers, Prel and Tivo, followed hesitantly, each taking one of Darius's offered hands. Their small fingers gripped his with surprising strength. "You're a natural with them," Darius observed as they made their way back to the airlock. Nima adjusted Shima in her arms. "Vazirans are communal caretakers. All children are precious to us." She paused, something vulnerable flickering across her features. "I was training as a child healer before I came to Epsilon." Darius sensed a story there but didn't press. "Lucky for these little ones, then." Back at the crawler, they carefully secured the children in the rear compartment. As Darius prepared for departure, he caught Nima watching him, her expression thoughtful. "What?" he asked. "You didn't hesitate," she said quietly. "When we found them. You immediately chose to help, consequences be damned." Darius shrugged, suddenly uncomfortable with her assessment. "It's the right thing to do. They're just kids." "Not everyone would see it that way," Nima replied. "Some would see merchandise." Darius felt his jaw tighten. "Well, I'm not some people." A small smile curved Nima's lips. "No. You certainly are not, Darius Voss." Something warm unfurled in his chest at the way she said his name. Ridiculous, he told himself. They were in the middle of a crisis, with 3 trafficked alien children depending on them. This was not the time to notice the elegant curve of Nima's neck or the way her silver-white hair caught the light. "We should move," he said gruffly, turning his attention to the controls. "Someone might come looking for this ship, or its cargo." As the crawler detached from the nightfall, Darius glanced back at the children huddled with Nima. Shima had fallen asleep against her shoulder, while the Solani brothers watched him with solemn eyes. "Safe now?" Prel, the older brother, echoed Shima's earlier question. Darius met Nima's gaze over the children's heads, seeing his own determination reflected in her dark eyes. "We'll make sure of it," he promised, setting course for Epsilon Station, where danger almost certainly waited, but where, for now, they had found unexpected allies in each other. Nima's quarters on Epsilon Station's residential level were modest but comfortable. Located in a quieter section reserved for diplomatic personnel, the apartment featured curved walls in traditional Viziran style and soft ambient lighting calibrated for her species-sensitive eyes. Now, with 3 alien children huddled on her curved lounger, the space felt both smaller and somehow more alive than it had in the 3 years she'd called it home. "They're still afraid," she murmured to Darius, who was rummaging through her kitchen unit for something the children might eat. "Their emotional signatures are chaotic, fear, confusion, hope all tangled together." Darius emerged with a container of nutrient paste, one of the few genuinely universal foods in the galaxy. "Can't blame them. Who knows what they've been through?" Shima, the Marish girl, hadn't left Nima's side since they'd arrived, her webbed fingers clutching the fabric of Nima's tunic. The Solani brothers, Prel and Tivo, remained watchful, their amber eyes tracking Darius's every movement with wary interest. "When did you last eat?" Nima asked gently, crouching before the children. Tivo, the younger brother, held up 3 tiny fingers. "Sleep cycles," he whispered. Darius's expression hardened as he prepared small portions of the paste. 3 days. Bastards. Language, Nima cautioned, though she shared his anger. "Little ones, this food is safe. It will help you feel stronger." With coaxing, the children accepted the nutrient paste. They ate slowly at first, then with increasing eagerness as their bodies recognized nourishment. Watching them, Nima felt a surge of protective fury. Who would do this to children? As if sensing her thoughts, Darius settled beside her, his shoulder brushing hers. The contact, though slight, radiated warmth through her tunic. For a Viziran, whose people were touch-oriented, the sensation was particularly vivid. "We need to examine those implants," he said quietly. "See what we're dealing with." Nima nodded. "After they've eaten. I have basic medical equipment here." A soft chime from the door made all 3 children freeze in terror. Prel instinctively pulled his brother behind him, while Shima dove into Nima's arms. "Expecting anyone?" Darius whispered, already moving toward the entrance, hand reaching for the stunner at his hip. Nima shook her head. "Stay with them," she murmured, gently transferring Shima to his arms. The child resisted only briefly before clinging to Darius with equal desperation. At the door's security panel, Nima activated the external camera. She exhaled in relief at the familiar face. "It's Jonah, my medical supplier." She pressed the admittance button. The door slid open to reveal a stocky human woman with close-cropped gray hair and shrewd eyes. "Got your emergency request," Jonah said without preamble, hefting a medical case. "Didn't ask questions, as instructed, but I'm guessing this isn't for a paper cut." "Thank you for coming," Nima said, ushering her inside. "Your discretion is appreciated." Jonah's eyes widened as she took in the scene, Darius holding Shima, the Solani brothers peering anxiously from the lounger. "Well, hell," she breathed. "That's complicated. They need those implants removed," Darius explained, nodding toward the metallic discs visible at the base of each child's skull. "Safely and quietly." Jonah set down her case and approached the children slowly. "Hello, little ones. I'm a healer. May I see those nasty things on your necks?" Surprisingly, it was Tivo who stepped forward first, turning to show his implant. Jonah examined it without touching, her expression growing grave. Neural interface technology. Military grade. She looked up at Nima and Darius. Where did you find these kids? Abandoned freighter, Darius replied. No crew, wiped logs, just 3 children in a hidden compartment. You reported this, of course? Jonah asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Nima shook her head. Not until we know who's involved. These implants suggest organization, resources. And likely friends in high places, Jonah finished, nodding. Smart. I've seen similar tech before, during the border conflicts. Nasty stuff, but I can remove them. She opened her case, revealing sophisticated medical equipment. It'll take time to do it safely, though. While Jonah prepared, Nima sat with the children, explaining what would happen in simple terms. Darius paced the apartment, checking security and occasionally glancing through the viewport at the bustling station beyond. Someone's going to notice that freighter soon, he said, more to himself than to the others. If they haven't already. I can put a temporary medical quarantine on it, Jonah offered, calibrating a delicate instrument. Biohazard protocols. Nobody questions those, and it'll buy you a day, maybe 2. Do it, Darius said gratefully. Removing the implants was a painstaking process. Jonah worked carefully, using local anesthetic to keep the children comfortable. Nima held each child in turn, her empathic abilities helping to soothe their fear. Darius told stories, old Earth tales he'd learned from his grandmother, adapted on the fly for alien listeners, keeping small minds distracted from the procedure. It was during one such story, a modified version of Hansel and Gretel, that Nima found herself watching Darius rather than the children. The rough-edged salvage pilot had transformed, his voice gentle as he described 2 clever children outsmarting an evil witch. The children were enraptured, and something shifted in Nima's perception of this human she'd previously only known professionally. You're good with them, she said later, after Jonah had successfully removed all 3 implants and the children had finally fallen asleep, exhausted from their ordeal. Darius looked up from the implants he'd been examining. Had a bunch of cousins growing up. Someone had to keep them entertained. They were seated at Nima's small dining table, the children asleep on makeshift beds nearby. Jonah had left an hour ago, promising discretion and medical follow-up. I've accessed the data storage on these, Darius continued, indicating the implants. Sophisticated tracking capability, neural monitoring, and, this is interesting, scheduled data transmission to a receiver on Epsilon station. Someone here is expecting updates on their cargo, Nima concluded grimly. Exactly. And when those updates stop coming? Darius let the implication hang. We need to know who, Nima said. Fast. I might have a lead. Darius pulled up a holographic display from his wrist unit. The transmission frequency is coded, but it's routed through administration channels. Someone with access to station systems. Nima's stomach tightened. Renfield? The port administrator does seem overly interested in incoming cargo lately, Darius agreed. Especially shipments from the mining colonies. He's been unusually accommodating with certain merchants, Nima added, thinking of the times she'd observed Renfield expediting clearance for ships that should have warranted closer inspection. Including a trader named Soren Vex. I know Vex, Darius said, his expression darkening. Runs specialized acquisitions for wealthy clients. Never trusted him. A small sound from the makeshift beds drew their attention. Shima had awoken and was watching them with large, luminous eyes. Nima moved to her side immediately. Can't sleep, little one. Shima's webbed fingers sought Nima's hand. Bad dreams. The dark place. What dark place? Darius asked gently, kneeling beside them. Where they put us, Shima whispered. After the mines fell. Her free hand touched the back of her neck where the implant had been. They put the metal in us. Said we belong to them now. Nima felt a surge of rage, quickly suppressed to avoid frightening the child. Who did, Shima? Do you remember any names? The man with star pictures on his hands, she said. He talked to the screen man on the ship. Screen man? Darius prompted. The one who said where to take us. He had funny talking. Shima's face scrunched in concentration. He called the Star Hands man Vex. Nima and Darius exchanged glances. That confirms it, Darius murmured. Vex is involved. And likely Renfield is the screen man, Nima added. The port administrator would know where to send shipments to avoid detection. Shima yawned, her eyelids drooping despite her fear. Nima hummed softly, of a Zyran lullaby her own mother had sung. The marish child relaxed gradually, drifting back to sleep. You'd make a wonderful mother, Darius said quietly, his eyes on Nima's face. The observation caught her off guard. Among Vazarans, such a statement carried particular weight, an acknowledgement of one's nurturing soul. From a human, it was merely a compliment, yet it warmed her nonetheless. I once thought I would be, she admitted, surprising herself with the confession. Before the colony disaster. Darius's expression held no pity, only quiet attention, an invitation to continue if she wished. Helio Prime, she said softly. The terraforming failure. I was there as a child healer apprentice. After, there was nothing left to heal. Understanding dawned in his eyes. That's why you left medical work. Nima nodded. Became a cultural liaison instead. Safer. Less attachment. Darius's hand found hers across Shima's sleeping form, his rough fingers gentle against her lavender skin. And now? The question hung between them, simple words carrying complex meaning. Nima looked at the sleeping children, then back at Darius. Now I find I cannot look away again. Good, he said, his voice husky. Because neither can I. Their gazes held, connection deepening. Then a priority alert flashed on Darius's wrist unit, breaking the moment. His expression turned grim as he read the message. Renfield's ordered a routine inspection of all residential quarters in the diplomatic section, he said. Starting tomorrow at 0800. Looking for the children, Nima whispered. We need to move them, Darius said. And we need to find concrete evidence linking Renfield and Vex to this operation. How? Darius's lips curved in a determined smile. I think it's time I called in some favors. And paid a visit to our friend Soren Vex. Nima glanced at the sleeping children, her resolve strengthening. Not alone, you're not. I work better solo, he argued, though without conviction. Not this time, Nima countered, her dark eyes meeting his. We started this together. These children trust both of us now. Something shifted in Darius's expression, respect, perhaps, or something deeper. All right. Partners, then. Partners, Nima agreed, trying to ignore the way the word sent warmth spreading through her chest. Outside the viewport, Epsilon Station continued its endless rotation, oblivious to the small rebellion brewing within its walls, a rebellion sparked by 3 children and fanned by 2 unlikely allies whose connection was rapidly becoming something neither had anticipated. The lower markets of Epsilon Station pulsed with chaotic energy, a labyrinth of stalls and shops where goods of questionable origin changed hands beneath flickering holosigns. Darius moved through the crowd with practiced ease, Nima close at his side. Her silver-white hair was concealed beneath a hooded cloak, her distinctive lavender skin dimmed by cosmetic pigments that gave her a more common bluish hue. How exactly do you know this merchant? Nima asked quietly, her eyes scanning the passing faces for signs of station security. Vex and I crossed paths during the Cygnus blockade, Darius replied, guiding her around a boisterous group of trillion traders. I transported medical supplies, he transported other things. We developed a mutual understanding. He trusts you. He thinks I'm corruptible, Darius corrected with a thin smile. That's more useful. They'd left the children in Jonah's care, hidden in a storage compartment beneath her medical supply shop. The impromptu childminder had seemed unsurprised by the development. Not my first revolution, she'd said wryly, showing them the concealed space where refugee families had sheltered during the station riots 3 years earlier. Now, approaching the upscale establishment that served as Soren Vek's public business front, Darius felt Nima tense beside him. "Remember," he murmured, "you're my new supplier contact from the Rigel system. Let me lead the conversation." Nima nodded, though her expression suggested she had reservations about the plan. Her fingers brushed his wrist, a Viziran gesture of alignment, subtle enough to go unnoticed by others. The contact sent warmth up Darius's arm, oddly reassuring. Exotic Acquisitions occupied a prime location at the junction of 2 major market corridors. Its exterior gleamed with polished metal and tasteful holographic displays showcasing rare artifacts and luxury goods. The security scanner at the entrance hummed softly as they passed through, cataloging their biopatterns and checking for weapons. Inside, the shop's opulence contrasted sharply with the market's general atmosphere. Climate-controlled display cases held genuine Earth antiquities, Centaurian fire gems, and delicate Marish sculpture, the latter causing Nima to stiffen when she saw it. "Ah, Darius Voss," a melodious voice called from the back of the shop. "What an unexpected pleasure." Soren Vex emerged from behind a curtained doorway, his slender form draped in an expensive synth-silk suit. His most striking feature, the reason for his nickname in certain circles, were the intricate stellar cartography tattoos covering his hands and extending up his wrists, disappearing beneath his tailored sleeves. "Star hands," Nima whispered, so softly only Darius could hear. "Vex," Darius greeted with calculated casualness. "Business looks profitable. One finds opportunities even in these uncertain times," Vex replied, his gaze shifting to Nima with obvious interest. "And who might your lovely companion be?" "Mira," Darius said, using the alias they'd agreed upon. "Represents a collective of specialty suppliers in the Rigel sector. Thought you two might have mutual interests." Vex's eyes, enhanced with cosmetic modifications that gave them a subtle metallic sheen, assessed Nima carefully. "Rigel, you say? Interesting. That region has been productive lately." He gestured toward the curtained doorway. "Perhaps we should discuss potential arrangements more privately." The back room was richly appointed, with plush seating and a private bar. Vex offered drinks, which they declined, then settled into a chair opposite them. "So, what brings a Viziran to Rigel?" he asked, his tone conversational yet probing. "Your kind typically avoid frontier systems. Profit margins are higher where others fear to tread," Nima replied smoothly. "Especially for specialized acquisitions." "Indeed." Vex leaned forward slightly. "And what specialties does your collective offer?" Darius interrupted before Nima could respond. "Actually, Vex, we're here about a specific acquisition. One that recently arrived at Epsilon but seems to have disappeared during processing." Something flickered behind Vex's metallic eyes, caution, perhaps, or calculation. "Oh. I handle many shipments, Voss. You'll need to be more specific." "A container from the Helios mining colonies," Darius said, watching Vex carefully. "Special cargo. Living cargo." The merchant's expression didn't change, but his tattooed fingers twitched almost imperceptibly against the armrest. "I'm afraid I don't deal in such commodities." "Perhaps you've been misinformed." "That's strange," Nima said, her voice taking on an edge that made Darius glance at her warily. "Because we have a little Marish girl who remembers you quite clearly. The man with star pictures on his hands, she called you." Vex's composure cracked, surprise flashing across his features before he controlled it. "I don't know what game you're playing." "No games," Darius cut in, producing one of the neural implants they'd removed from the children. "Recognize this?" The merchant went very still, his enhanced eyes fixed on the device. "Where did you get that?" "From the neck of a trafficked child," Nima said, all pretense abandoned. One of 3 we found on an abandoned freighter, the Nightfall. The same children who were supposed to be delivered to your client today. Vex's hand moved toward an internal pocket, but Darius was faster. He grabbed the merchant's wrist, applying just enough pressure to convey serious intent. Think carefully, Vex, he warned. We're not here to expose you, not yet, anyway. We want information. After a tense moment, Vex relaxed marginally. Those implants are military-grade technology. If you've removed them, then you know this operation has powerful backing. Port Administrator Renfield, Darius said. What's his role? Vex's lips curved in a humorless smile. You've done your homework. Yes, Renfield provides clearance and documentation. Ensures the right ships aren't inspected, the right containers disappear from manifests. And the children? Nima asked, her voice tight with controlled anger. Where were they going? I'm merely a middleman, Vex said, spreading his tattooed hands. I facilitate connections between suppliers and clients with specialized tastes. Darius felt sick. You mean buyers? People who purchase children. The wealthy always want what others cannot have, Vex replied, as if discussing rare artwork rather than living beings. Exotic species, particular talents, trainable ages, the market is surprisingly specific. Nima leaned forward, her eyes boring into Vex. How many? How many children have passed through your hands? Something in her intensity made the merchant hesitate before answering. From the Helios colonies alone. Perhaps 30 in the past standard year. More from other unstable regions. Darius remembered the implant's data. And there are 14 more currently in transit. Vex's surprise was genuine. You've accessed the tracking network. Impressive. He seemed to recalculate his position, then nodded slowly. Yes. 14 more, on 3 separate vessels, converging on Epsilon within the next week. We want locations, Nima said. Transit routes, delivery schedules, client names. Vex laughed, a brittle sound. You're either very brave or very foolish. Do you have any idea who you're going against? The operation extends far beyond Renfield. Coalition officials, corporate executives, even military commanders, the clientele includes people who could erase your existence with a single command. Then give us something we can use against them, Darius pressed, leaning closer. Because those 3 children? They're just the beginning. We're shutting this whole operation down. The merchant studied them both, his enhanced eyes calculating. You're serious, he said finally, sounding almost impressed. You actually think you can stop this? We already have, Nima replied. Those 3 children are free. The others will be too. Vex was silent for a long moment, then reached into his desk and withdrew a small data crystal. The central server coordinates. Access codes. Client registry. He placed it on the table between them. My insurance policy, if you will. I've survived in this business by always having leverage. Darius took the crystal cautiously. Why give us this? Because you'll never use it, Vex said with certainty. The moment you attempt to access that server, security protocols will trigger. Renfield will know, and so will everyone else involved. His metallic eyes gleamed. But it might buy you time to get those children off station before they come for you. Which they will, regardless. A chime from Darius's wrist unit interrupted them, an urgent message from Jonah. He read it quickly, his expression darkening. Security teams are conducting unscheduled inspections in the medical district, he relayed to Nima. Jonah's activated her evacuation protocol. Nima stood immediately. We need to go. Vex watched them with something like pity. You've made powerful enemies today. Renfield won't stop until he recovers his merchandise. They're children, not merchandise, Darius snapped, pocketing the data crystal. A matter of perspective, Vex replied with a shrug. One you don't have the luxury of debating. I'd suggest you leave Epsilon. Quickly. As they turned to go, Nima paused, looking back at the merchant. There was a time, wasn't there? Before the star hands. Before you became this. Something flickered across Vex's face, a ghost of emotion quickly suppressed. We all make choices, Viziron. Some just cost more than others. Outside, they moved swiftly through the market corridors, taking indirect routes to avoid security cameras. Nima's hand found Darius's as they navigated a particularly dense crowd, her fingers interlacing with his. He might alert Renfield, she said, keeping her voice low. Maybe, Darius agreed. But I don't think so. Vex is a survivor above all else. He'll wait to see which way the wind blows before committing. They emerged into a less populated service corridor that would lead them back toward Jonah's shop. Darius pulled Nima into a recessed doorway, checking their surroundings before continuing. We need to get the children off Epsilon, he said. My ship is docked in the Independent Bay. I could have it prepped within the hour. And go where? Nima asked. Vex said the network extends into the Coalition. Centauri Haven, Darius replied without hesitation. I have contacts there. People who owe me favors. We can secure temporary sanctuary while we figure out our next move. Nima's dark eyes searched his face. You're certain? Once we leave, there's no coming back. Not for either of us. The implications of what they were planning settled between them. Darius would be abandoning his salvage business, his reputation, everything he'd built over the past decade. Nima would be leaving her position, her home, her entire life on Epsilon. I'm certain, he said quietly. His hand rose almost of its own accord, fingers brushing a strand of silver-white hair that had escaped her hood. Are you? Instead of answering, Nima leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was brief but electric, sending sparks of sensation through Darius's entire body. When she pulled back, her eyes held a mixture of emotions he couldn't fully decipher. I've been certain since the moment we found those children, she whispered. A station-wide alert suddenly blared through the corridor speakers. Attention all residents and visitors. Security lockdown in progress. Unauthorized vessel departure prohibited until further notice. Repeat, security lockdown in progress. Renfield's making his move, Darius said grimly. We need to hurry. They ran the remaining distance to Jonah's shop, finding the entrance sealed with a quarantine notice, a ruse to keep security at bay. Darius tapped a specific pattern on the service panel, and a moment later, a concealed side door slid open. Jonah ushered them inside quickly. You two certainly know how to complicate a quiet afternoon, she muttered, securing the door behind them. The children were huddled in the storage compartment below, wide-eyed but calm. Shima reached for Nima immediately, while the Solani brothers pressed close to Darius. Bad people looking? Prel asked, his small face solemn. Yes, Darius answered honestly. But we're going to get you somewhere safe. Jonah handed them a bag of supplies. Medical necessities, food concentrates, and clean clothes for the little ones. There's also a scrambler for your ship's transponder, it'll buy you some time before they can track you. Thank you, Nima said, embracing the older woman. For everything. Just get those children to safety, Jonah replied gruffly. And maybe someday change the system that allows this to happen. We will, Darius promised, checking the corridor through a hidden sensor. Clear for now. We should move, freight lift to level 3, maintenance tunnels to the independent docking bay. As they prepared to leave, Shima tugged at Nima's hand. Together. Stay together. Nima knelt, meeting the marish child's large eyes. Yes, little one. We stay together. Promise? Tivo asked, looking between Nima and Darius. Darius found himself reaching for Nima's hand, their fingers intertwining as they had in the market corridor, but this time with deeper meaning. Promise, they said in unison, the word binding them not only to the children but to each other. Outside, alarms continued to wail as Renfield's security forces searched for their missing cargo. But within Jonah's shop, in that moment of connection, Darius felt something he hadn't experienced in years, the certainty that despite the danger ahead, he was exactly where he was meant to be. With a final nod to Jonah, they slipped into the corridor, the children between them, moving like shadows toward an uncertain future, but moving together.